Hey everyone, welcome to today's live stream. I am talking about how to use AI like ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever your preferred AI tool of choice is to create a very specific and very specialized training plan that you can tailor towards your next. Let's dive into how to use AI to create a training plan. In our Facebook page, and if you're going to watch this later on YouTube, we'll have a resources section, but there's a few things you can check out. The first is I have created a training plan input form, and then I've done an example training plan. So those are both in our Facebook group right now, so you can click those links. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk you through the process that I've been using to create training plans. So I'm going to pull up my screen right here, and right here you should be able to see an example AI training plan. This is an example that I put as if I'm preparing to do the West Highland Way next June. So a whole year out, West Highland Way. I am doing that adventure along with many of you who've already signed up for it. It's actually full, but you can get on the wait list if we have any cancellations. So I did this as if I'm starting from scratch today and getting ready to train for the West Highland Way. I'm not actually going to use the training plan that I just put together, that I'm going to show you how I put together using AI, because first is Kilimanjaro, and then I can focus on the West Highland Way. But so the very first step is to figure out what AI tool you're going to use. A lot of people know and use ChatGPT, and I think ChatGPT is awesome. I use Gemini because I pay for the Google Suite, and Gemini is part of that. And I found that I really like Gemini as opposed to ChatGPT. I'll also mention that using AI is a little interesting and strange and new. And if you're not comfortable using an AI tool to build a training plan, but you still want a training plan built for you, let me know. You can fill out the training input form. That's this form right here that I just shared in our Facebook group. You can use that form. Send that form to me. I'll plug it into Gemini and I'll share your training plan with you. I'm happy to do that if you don't want your information to be out there linked to an AI platform. Okay, so there we go. So choose your platform, ChatGPT, Gemini, there's a whole bunch out there, whatever you prefer. I'm going to plug all of my information into Gemini. The first thing I like to think about is I want to give AI as much information about me and the training that I like to do as possible. So I like to think about the 5 W's. So who, what, where, when, and why. And I'm going to talk you through all of those. So the very first bit of information that I like to give Gemini, I'm just going to call it Gemini, is who am I? So I just type this out on a Google Doc. Something in the Meet tab needs your attention. Go to Meet tab. I don't know what that means. Yes, I'm getting kicked out of my own live stream. Okay, back to it. So I like to give Gemini as much information about me as possible. And this is as it pertains to training for big adventures. I said, I'm a 45-year-old woman. I'm really active. I enjoy working out. I like to be outside when I'm working out. So I just typed out a little paragraph talking about who I am, how old I am, how I enjoy working out. I mentioned body fat percentage here because personally I'm trying to lose some body fat, gain more lean muscle mass, and I hope that AI can create a training program that helps with that as well as preparing me for the West Highland Way. I talk a little bit about diet, kind of my weaknesses there, salty snacks like chips, sour candy, chocolate, snacks that I like to eat. So I think it's good when we're talking training to also give AI a little bit of kind of background information about all the other things that are not necessarily training specific, but pertain and relate to our training. The other thing that I like to do is we'll move on to the what, and that is where it's like, what do I like to do and what do I think AI needs to know about my health history? So then I type up a little paragraph and I say, I love to walk. I like to get a certain amount of steps per day. I had cancer, so I'm postmenopausal and I have some concerns with bone density. I also have osteopenia in my left hip because of treatment. I talk about my health history with breast cancer, and then fatigue. Just, if we were going to see a personal trainer at a gym, hopefully they would ask us a little bit about our health history too. And I just think that's good to give our AI feature Gemini there some information about our health history. So now we have the who and the what, and now we're going to dive into the where. And I like to tell Gemini where I'm going. So where is this big adventure going to be? Where I live, because that could have implications. Like if you're climbing Kilimanjaro, or if you're doing Tour de Mont Blanc, some of those high altitude adventures, and you come from a low altitude place, then Gemini or ChatGPT might be able to help you incorporate some acclimation, some of the altitude training hikes that you might need to get in. So it's important to say where you live and where do you like to train, or where you're training personally. So I said, I'm training to hike the West Highland Way in Scotland next June. First time hiking in Scotland, but I'm used to multi-day trekking. I say, I live in southeastern Wyoming at 7,000 feet. So elevation, altitude training, that's pretty easy for me to get. And then I like to tell Gemini, I'm not a big fan of the gym. I like to train outdoors. I have a home gym that I like to work out in. I have kettlebells, bungees, balance boards, Swiss balls, treadmill. So that basically tells Gemini or ChatGPT what kind of training I like to do, because you don't want AI to kick out a training plan that's going to be something that you're not going to enjoy doing. I think that it's really important that when it comes to training and working out, we're doing the things that we like. Otherwise, we're just not going to do it. Then we move into the when. So that is, we need to tell Gemini, ChatGPT when we like to train and when we're going on our trip or a big adventure. So I say, I like to train early in the mornings. I'm an early bird. I like to get up early. I like to just get my workout done so that I don't have to think about it the rest of the day. And then I mentioned sometimes after dinner, I'll get another walk in with my husband and my puppy. Sometimes I like to do yoga in the evening to relax before bed. So kind of giving Gemini the timeline of my training. And then I think it's also really important to tell Gemini, ChatGPT, why we're going on this trip, or why we're training for this adventure, or maybe we're training for a race. And I think that's important. It's always important to have our why, because if we don't have a why, then what's the whole purpose? So I feel like I need to be training specifically for this trip, because it's 96 miles and I've never done 96 miles in a week before. So I am a little bit nervous about the mileage. I'm hoping my body will cooperate with that extended mileage over a short period of time. So that is kind of the who, what, where, when, why that I created to type into Gemini. If you flip over to our Facebook group, you can see this training input form. I created a form that's basically that same information. So what you can do is you can copy and paste this into your own document of choice, fill it out, then copy and paste it and put it right into Gemini or ChatGPT. So that's what I did. I'll go back here though. I'm going to input that into ChatGPT or Gemini, and then I'm going to say, I need help creating a 12-month training program. You could say a 3-month training program. Like if you're going to Kilimanjaro with me in August, we have 3 months left to train. So you could say, I need a 3-month training plan. Or if you're going on a backpacking trip over 4th of July, you could say, I'm going backpacking over the 4th of July. So I just need a 6-week training plan to get ready for this backpacking trip. Some keywords to use there are progressive overload. That means that we're gradually working up and building up in our training program. And then that's important, right? Because we want the program to adjust as we get stronger. And then we tell AI how we want this plan to be broken up. And then I like to say, can you help me create this plan? And then ask the question, what else do you need from me to make this program fit my needs? So this is what I did. I typed that information into Gemini here. And let me see, where did I go? Okay, so here's what I typed in and here's what I got. Let's see. I want to make sure that this is showing up here. Oh, I'm not even sharing my screen. There we go. Okay, so I typed that up into Gemini, and this is what they said. It sounds like you have you're ready to go here. And then Gemini came back with some more questions for me. They wanted to know my current weekly training schedule, specific strength training exercises that I'm doing, how comfortable I am with intensity. I think they might have asked me that question because I mentioned breast cancer, my time commitment for training, nutrition goals, recovery practices, and how I monitor progression, how I keep track of my workouts. I copied and pasted all of those into the document, all the questions that Gemini asked me. So I said, this is my workout plan this week. I just gave an example of this week. I said, these are the strength training exercises that I do, that I'm comfortable with intensity, my time commitment for training, recovery practices. I said, I'm not very good at recovery. I kind of just go until I crash. And then how I monitor everything with Garmin. So then I copied and pasted all of that. And I went back to Gemini here and copied that in. And then Gemini spit out this amazing training program for me. They broke it down Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Progressive overload. They talked about increasing the duration of walks and how much you should increase that duration. They talked about using good form with strength training and recovery focus, because I said I'm not very good at recovery. And then they also added some nutrition considerations, because I mentioned that I need to probably eat a little more protein, but I'm not like a huge fan of, I don't want to just eat boring protein sources. So we talked about they mentioned some bone density considerations because of osteopenia, fatigue, and then months 4 through 6. So they gave me phase 2. So this is the second iteration as we start to increase the intensity here. Once again, broken down to a workout every single day, mentioned progressive overload, recovery focus, nutrition, bone density. We moved on to phase 3. So these would be months 7 through 9 before the West Highland Way. Once again, now they're starting to incorporate hiking with a weighted backpack, some different strength training exercises, a different focus there. So from building general strength to muscular endurance. And then some other things that Gemini mentioned was make sure to do some gear testing, practice some navigation, although I don't think we'll need navigation because we'll be with guides that are going to take really good care of us. Nutrition, so to try to figure out how to make sure that we're eating and drinking when we're on the hike, and reverse overload. So now decreasing training in order to recover and get ready for the big hike ahead. Recovery focus, sleep, nutrition, hydration, gentle movement, trying to avoid injury, all those things. Talks about important considerations. And I just thought that was so cool that I could just type in a little bit of information about myself and then all of a sudden have this training program that is really doable and really relates to how I like to train my body. Another couple things that I thought were kind of cool. So I took it another step here. I plugged all those into ChatGPT, and then I thought, okay, well, Gemini just gave me this really great training program, but what if I could take it one step further? So I thought about other things I could ask Gemini. So now Gemini knows any maybe good podcast episodes or that I could listen to as I'm hiking and walking about the West Highland Way. Gemini now knows so much about me that Gemini could suggest a packing list for the West Highland Way. This was pretty fun. I hopped in there and I said to Gemini, what are some good songs that will keep me hiking at a pace of 20 minutes a mile? I really like 90s alternative rock, like Chili Peppers, Nirvana, Green Day. Can you help me create a playlist? So Gemini even created a playlist with the music that I like that would help keep me at a pace of about a 20-minute mile, which is a pace that I tend to walk if I'm just out for a leisurely stroll. Usually 3 miles an hour is kind of my goal for hiking. And so Gemini even put together a playlist that I can now plug into Spotify or YouTube Music, and even some advice about tips for my hiking playlist, variety, make sure to download it offline, be careful of your phone's battery life, all these things, situational awareness. So I thought that was cool that I got a playlist and then I got tips on using the playlist. And if we go back to this, the other questions I thought about asking was, I thought maybe, okay, I could ask Gemini about an itinerary of things to see and do in Scotland before the hike. So I went back into Gemini and I said, my family is going to actually join me in Scotland after the hike. And I said, my kids' age, they like adventure stuff, mountain biking and zip lining. My husband likes museums, castles, and history. He's a super nerd. And then I said, we don't want to rent a car, but use trains for public transportation. We'd like to stay in hotels with restaurants and swimming pools. Can you help us put together a 7 to 10 day itinerary for after I'm done with the hike? And this was cool too, because Gemini even put together an itinerary that my family can follow after I'm done with the hike. I was like, my mind is blown. Now, of course, I'm going to go and do some other research, but this just really puts it all in a really nice kind of trip planning format. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I was just like mind blown at how much information I could get from Gemini or ChatGPT regarding training and how that training is now specific to the adventure that I'm going on. So if you want to try this out, you can head to our Facebook group and there's this training plan input form that I mentioned a little bit before. I'll just walk you through it here. So this is just a Google form. It's best to copy and paste it and put it in your own document and fill it out, but start with the who, what, where, when, and why, and then ask ChatGPT or Gemini if they have any more questions for you about what you're training for, and then see what happens. But ChatGPT or Gemini might ask you how long you have before your adventure, so what the training program length needs to be, how you prefer it to be structured, and then your weekly training schedule, exercises you currently do, time commitment, nutrition goals, recovery practices. And I think if you're getting ready to plan a big adventure and you just pop that into Gemini or ChatGPT, you're gonna be able to get a really incredible program. And another thing that I want to mention is I know that there's a lot of personal trainers out there who are amazing, and I have a trainer. And so I think it's always good to talk to a trainer, talk to your doctor. But I know that's expensive too, and if you don't have the budget or you can't find a trainer that you like, I think this is a great substitute. And I use Gemini in conjunction with my trainer to put together a program that I really like.